Hello there, you're watching The Pulse on the JoyNews channel. We're coming to you live from our studios here in Accra. This is The Pulse. Coming up, minority in Parliament questions the absence of Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta from Parliament as the House commences debate on the 2023 budget statement and economic plan of government. We'll hear from Speaker Alban Bagbin, who's urging the Finance Minister to refrain from being absent on the floor of the House and get a buy-in from all sides in Parliament. We're live to the House to get you the very latest. Also, investigations underway after fire razed down over 200 shops at Kantamanto here in Accra. As shop owners continue to count their loss, we hear from the Bureau of Public Safety, which says government ought to do more to end the recurrent fire outbreaks at the market centres. We'll get you the very latest. Ashanti Regional Director of the National Service Secretariat apologizes for his verbal assault on a nurse on duty at the Mensah Palace over his decision to question the health practitioner who chastised his daughter, for allegedly issuing a wrong medical prescription. We'll bring you details. This is The Pulse. This, as always, brought to you by Global Communities Dignilu, Affordable Safe Sanitation. Don't forget that we're also streaming live on all our social media handles. It's at JoyNews on TV. Feel free to be a part of the show. I'm Sogah. We'll be back shortly. And this afternoon, government says that it is assessing the investigative report on circumstances leading to the outbreak of fire at Kantamanto here in Accra. Now, JoyNews checks indicate that over 200 shops have been razed down, while other shop owners have some of their wares partly damaged. Well, my colleague Michael Ashale has been there all throughout the day and now reports.
So hundreds of people are sifting through the debris of the fire incident at Kantamanto. They are trying to salvage the little that's left of what used to be their livelihoods. There are shops that have been razed by the fire. They are still trying to come to terms with what exactly has happened here. After more than 8 hours, the fire has proven to be a daunting task for personnel of the Ghana National Fire Service. They are still on the ground trying to douse what's left of the fire. They tell me on record that they have now been able to contain the fire and stop the further spread of it. But these are all that really remains of what used to be one of Ghana's biggest clothing or thrift shop areas here. You can still see the rest of the clothes. Some of them burnt totally, whilst others have been partly burned. It's difficult to actually salvage anything. Earlier, some of them were sifting through the materials. See which of them can be put back on the market here. Most of them left here disappointed that they came here. These are supposed to be raw beans, but now half-baked by the raging fire here. That happened some hours ago. It comes from a shop that belonged to Sandra and her mother. She tells me how difficult it is even trying to salvage what's left of this particular shop. Then I beans in Kwan.
Beans.
How long have you been doing this business?
Oh, for a very long time, more than 20 years now. My mom has been doing this.
I see. It must be very tough for you, and apologies for some of the questions that I may ask you. But were you here when it started?
I was by the roadside.
And how did you find out?
Oh, when I was there, I've been seeing the fire, I've seen the smoke above. So people were like, just rubbish that they were burning. As time goes on, I was like, oh, let me come and check. So by the time I get here, the fire was already at the first line. So, and me like this, I can't carry a sack of beans. So by the time people come out to help, that's already been, so there's nothing we can do about it.
But you've gotten something, right? Not all of it was burnt.
It was 55 bags. 5 bags is 1,500. Then the 50 bag one is 920 cedis. So what we had is Less than 10 bags simple. Now it's half. You have to be collecting it as we are doing here before we get that.
A very difficult moment. So what are you going to do with what you get from here?
There's nothing you can do again. This what they can't use it for anything. They can only give it to those animals who eat beans. That's all. Nothing else. Nothing else.
Oh, please, what's your name?
My name is Sandra Humata. My mom is Patient Humata.
Your friend Dede. Me turn de Kantamanto. Me turn tops. Me nyoma shit. Bebe no Mrs. Otim in chance nyoma. Bebe ni nyina shit. Ne sack. Say the I de ne bebe akokra nya bowa. Ebi ya 40, ebi ya 50. Ti say there. Extra ban say onnom ye kakra na say there Kantamanto for. Enyina eja hia to ye papa anya asam ketwa. Efie mienu ni a aha hye ana na brother say ya ana na so asa hye. Ti extra president say onnom ye. No ma hwe ye no mo ye kakra na say de mo ye dia ma ye papa. They say any ti no ye ni mo bread ti ya no. Tell about credit and credit you. I read wash your class on man, and if the bay walk or draw. You know, men to me as say. Monomia, President, yes, sir, you saw your bad time. To do me, I break a can have and started. They said, dear, Lord, and Yakwaji, me Yakwaji low, and Yadia Juma. No man in Nana, Ashton, you better than yes, Kakochi alone, see come home.
Then I'm a worker, as I say, many men in Ashe. We will fear their friends, say, me near Mano Ashe. They say, me who near me, me bedroom, no cray, Jack Tom Bobo, Untiming Ramco Union. They say, near Mana Boyadi, a bit 22, a bit 25, a bit 30, and near Marco Fanchich, yeah, and near my Sansa and Tadianti, Ube try, so Chico to them. Nini Nashi, ye who near Sikansu soon you walk. Yaya mobo enche bia na ye ma baby school na ye san be school ye be ye den nti aban ye sraw wo hu ye mobo no me no ye kakra e bi se ye ni ba bia ye ko ye sra no ye pane chew o meboa ye manu asi mansa
They took the Ghana National Fire Service. So we are currently in one of the storerooms, I want to believe, where the Ghana National Fire Service is just uncovering that this structure was built on top of one of their fire hydrants. It's been a daunting challenge for them to try and bring this fire under control. If they had this fire hydrant, that definitely would have changed the narrative. So that's exactly what you can see now, a fire hydrant, which has already been built upon. Over the years, they've been complaining, time to that number, that people continue to conceal their fire hydrants, which makes it impossible to get water to fight some of the fire that happens in our major markets.
Take the inside as well.
Hello.
What's the food here?
Okay.
This one they've directed me to. And there is one also here. That is a length of space to space on it. So
Although many people managed to salvage some of their items from the inferno, others lost millions of Ghana cedis. They are asking government to honor its promise by extending help to them. For JoyNews, Michael Ashale.
Some updates for you. A couple of hours ago, we do know that the Ghana National Fire Service disclosed that it was carrying out further investigations on the matter.
We've had reports that you responded very late. They've been calling you for 1 hour. How do you respond to that?
That cannot be true. I don't think anybody called us within that period. We rather, when we got here, realized that the fire has been raging for a long time. Now, what is the distance between Kantamanto and what do we call it? Accra City Fire Station? That is Makola. So if they had been calling us for 1 hour, why didn't they run and call us? I don't think anybody called us. What happened was that we received the first call at 35 minutes after 4 this morning. And we rushed and got here within 6 minutes. When we got here, we realized the situation was out of control. Therefore, we requested for assistance. And 8 other fire tenders were mobilized to this scene. So I don't think anybody called us and for us to wait. If you should ask them what number they called, there you will see whether they called or they didn't call.
So, let's talk about how long did it take you to actually get here? What was your response time?
That is what I'm saying. It took us 6 minutes because from our records, we got here 45 minutes after 4 a.m., which means it's 6 minutes that it took us to get here.
Great. Now, let's talk about the current situation. But before that, the challenges. It wasn't easy trying to douse the fire. At least if we came here around 4 a.m., it's now midday, and I'm now seeing that you at least managed to do something. So, what were the challenges in trying to get access to the place?
One is accessibility, because apart from this street that we are standing on, because it was early morning, so it was not occupied. There were no other access to inside of the market itself. And so we had to couple a lot of hoses before we could get to the scene to fight the fire. So I think that is one. And congestion was also another. So these are the 2 factors that impeded smooth firefighting.
So where are we now with the fire?
We are at the very tail end of it. Now we realize that we are now just left with this side. What we are doing, we term it overhaul. So the overhaul means we turn over those items already burnt to ensure that whatever embers are left in there are extinguished completely. We don't want to live here and we'll be called back that there is re-ignition. So that is what we are doing now.
But I see fire there. I mean, is this supposed to be normal?
Yes. You see, that is where they were packing all their goods. And these are materials. So once you've not been able to put water on it, it will continue to smolder. What you are seeing is smoldering. It's not proper flame that you see. So that is why we are doing what we call the overhaul. The overhaul is to turn them over and then put water on it to completely extinguish it.
Great. So you are definitely containing now?
Sure.
Great. Now let's talk about your fire hydrant. We just shown our viewers that you have a fire hydrant here. You had no idea about it. They built over it. How big of a challenge is it? Because I realized that for about 20 minutes now, you've been able to pump water into finishing this particular oil. You definitely have to travel between here and wherever you get the water from. I mean, how big of a challenge is that?
Now, I have always been saying that in firefighting, availability of adequate, constant flow of water is about 60% of the job that is done. So if you have water constantly flowing, 60% of the job is already done. The rest, 40%, is for the manpower and the knowledge that we apply. And so if you don't have water to do the work, then it means you have a deficit. You are starting from negative 60. You are doing 160% job before you can be able to complete. So that is how difficult it was.
But how challenging is this to find that people continue to build over your hydrants?
I am surprised because this is an area that belongs to the city authorities. And so I am surprised why a building has been put on a fire hydrant. And you see, we were not even aware. It is they themselves, the market women, who came forward and told us that you have a fire hydrant here. Only for us to discover that this is the situation. And we are not being fair to ourselves. How can a developer develop on a hydrant? That same thing that is supposed to protect you, you have built on it. Supposing that hydrant was available, did you know how quickly we could have finished with the job?
You tell me, How much would it have helped if you had discovered this hydrant earlier?
Now, that what it means is that we will not be shuffling and going to look for water. We will just couple our hoses to it and get water directly into the fire tenders to fight the fire.
So that's the position of the fire service. Meanwhile, the Bureau of Public Safety says political leadership of the country must be held accountable for failing to design a long-term solution to recurring incidents of market fires. Joining us via Zoom is Nanaya Wakwada, Executive Secretary for the Bureau of Public Safety. Thank you, sir, for your time. What's the position of the Bureau of Public Safety, taking into account that we've had recurrent fire outbreaks?
It's a myriad of issues. But if we want to look at this issue of annual ritual of fires in our markets, we must also understand that as a people, we must commit to ending this phenomenon or at least reducing it significantly. First of all, we all know that our markets are not built markets. They are formed markets. They are markets that one person settles here, start selling, doing business, then another join and another join and another joins. And the city authorities, instead of moving in to design these spaces or build them, they also allow these markets to grow in the manner that it is formed. And it becomes a headache for all of us. So for starters, I think that we must build our markets. And these are not new solutions. These are things that we have been talking about, year on year, when there are market fires. Two, I think that city authorities themselves must also commit themselves alongside with the fire department, the Ghana National Fire Service, in the education of traders, about fire safety. If fire service cannot shut down, if we can shut down our markets for clean up exercises, we should be able to shut down our markets for fire education. Okay, I'm told this is what happens when fire service goes to the market to go and do fire education. They will normally come with these huge speakers, PA system, play good music. The market women will leave their wares and come and dance. Once the music goes off and you start the education, then they remember their businesses they have to go and take care of. And all of them go and do business. So we should be able to shut down market operations and do fire trainings. We should be able to provide certificates for market men and market women, traders, for participating in fire training. Also, the ECG itself must have a team of auditors constantly on the neck of these emerging or evolving markets. Because we all know that 9 out of 10 times, most market fires are, caused by electrical wiring. So why have we sat down? Why are we sitting down every year on year, to see these things occur, and we pay lip service to them? 3, I think that political authority is shameless in this regard. Look, we've had these fires since time immemorial. There have been years that we've even brought the FBI to come and assist us, unravel some of these market fires. And today, we still have market fires, and Minister of Interior, Vice President, all kinds of politicians will go there and be making, fanciful pronouncements. I think that we must hold them to task to do the needful. They must ensure that markets are not formed, but they are built. And when markets start, emerging or growing up, the appropriate state agencies, the city authorities who go there to collect tolls and taxes from these people, move in there to sanitize their spaces, design their spaces. Fire service itself must have a policy that until a space, a commercial area, has provided a blueprint for us, until we have put in the necessary safety, measures, until we know where we can tap water from, until we know where we can enter this market from, where we can position ourselves from to fight fire, until we can say that we have a fire brigade this space or commercial area, you cannot operate. They must have that as a policy. And this is not rocket science. This is something that they can do. So it's a myriad of issues that are not new to all of us. We've been seeing this from time immemorial, and I think that we must begin to hold persons in responsible places accountable for some of these fires. Until that is done, we would always be hurting ourselves in this manner. Today, the Interior Minister is promising psychological services to those hundreds of people who have lost their work. Psychological services may sanitize a person's mental health, but it doesn't bring money. It's not bringing back his capital. And for those psychological services, who is going to pay for it? It's not the Interior Minister's pocket money which is going to pay for these psychological services. It is you and I, our tax. The finance minister will go to Parliament and go and say that, look, we need money. And for that matter, even if you are spending 50 pesos today, we will charge you e-levy because we need to go and hire a psychologist to go and counsel people whose words have bent because the Interior Minister, the Fire Service, and the city authorities have failed to do their job. Where does this happen? So I think that we as citizens must begin to hold, people in political authority accountable and completely reject those fanciful comments when these sad occurrences happen.
And I get the point you're making, but of course, let's be fair to the minister. He says he's reviewing the reports that he's receiving from the emergency response team, i.e. The fire service and the security agencies. Why not give him some chance?
He was hired to do his work. He was hired to review reports and take actions. Is this the first time a market fire has occurred? So I'm sorry, but sometimes I blame you, some of you people in the media. You fail to ask the relevant questions. Sometimes I see when all we want is just meeting a minister. There's been a fire, so a minister, a politician has to come and make statements. When they come, they make some of these, theatrical statements, and we let them go. If he's not going to review a report, how is he going to do his work? So it's part of his work to review reports, but this is not the first market fire that has occurred for him. Previous reports that he reviewed, what did he see and what did he do? Those are some of the questions you should be asking them and not allow them to come and tell us some of these things.
But to be fair, he wasn't present, so he must study the reports.
No, there's nothing fair about this. He's rather being unfair to Ghanaians by coming to tell us he's going to review the report. This is not the first market fire we've had. The Interior Minister has been Interior Minister for 6 years. In the last 6 years, he's been the Interior Minister. He has reviewed, unless he's trying to tell us previous market fires, he wasn't bothered. If he tells us that he wasn't bothered by previous market fires, and this is the first time he wants to apply himself to reviewing a market fire report, that is also an indictment on him. I'm sorry, but the truth must be told. You cannot be talking like this when people's capital is gone down the drain.
So that's Nanaya Akwada. Well, there's a need for us to expand this. What's been the impact on the traders themselves? And we're fortunate to be joined in studio now by the General Secretary for the Ghana Used Clothing Dealers Association, Edward Atobra. It's a good time to be talking to you, but such an unfortunate incident, I must say. I'm sure that many of your colleagues are calling you and counting their losses. What do you have to say with regard to the amount of investment that has gone down the drain simply because of this inferno? Have you been able to, as an association, put a cost to it?
Yeah, I would like to sympathize with those who got their goods bent. Many people called me from, market women, the way they cry when such things happen. So we are trying to gather the data. We have someone who says he has about 63 bills.
63 bills?
Yeah, only one person.
Just one?
Yeah. So you can imagine the number of bills that got bent.
Right.
So we are working with them so that we can get the data And then we had a call from the Ministry of Trade. So we are also waiting for a meeting to discuss the issue and how best we can do to handle this situation.
The area where this incident occurred, would you say that looking at all the studies that have been done, this is one of the flashpoints in the market space and a reason for which we're possibly seeing the fires that we're seeing now?
Yeah. You know, anytime there's a bent, we have a rumor. And the rumor comes and then sometimes leadership take it as a normal thing.
Oh.
So relaxing on such situations, you know, incur a heavy loss to the market. So we have decided to, you know, when you look at the bigger market,
okay.
You know, there's a sub-market to the bigger market.
Of the bigger market,
yeah.
Right.
So when you look at the bigger market, we are putting in place structures. We have security men who watch over the market. We make sure that at the close of the market, all meters are off. And then we check all the lighting systems before we leave. So there are things in place to curtail the situation.
But for this side, that did not happen. And are you suggesting that at least you had some form of information that this was going to happen?
Yeah, a week earlier, we had an information that the market is going to burn. So we didn't know exactly where. And then, unfortunately, it happened.
And that's, I'm curious about that, because how did you discover who were you told was going to be part of this action? And why didn't you take any steps?
Yeah, you know, the market is big.
Okay.
And as I said, you know, the bigger market, we are putting structures in place. And there's a market where we have some few people categorized specifically with such kind of goods. Like we have bear sheets, we have the material. These are the people who got their goods burnt.
Okay, today. Yeah.
Today. Yeah, so we didn't look so much into that area. We look at the bigger market.
Oh, so you are concentrating on the other side. So because you had information that this was going to happen. Was it because they are, as you're saying, just a small portion of the bigger space that you were protecting?
Yeah, it was a small space, but you know, the information came shortly, and then we needed to do something.
But how did you get this information? Who reported or gave? I mean, it sounded an alarm that you need to be on the lookout for this.
Yeah, always the market women. We have heard that the market is going to burn, and something needs to be done about it. So the rumor comes, and then we try to take steps to curtail the situation, but unfortunately, it happened.
It happened. Would you say that this is a failure of proactiveness on the side of the leadership, of course, the groups that you represent, or on the part of the security agencies? Because at least having had that intel, you would have wanted to share with the Ghana Police Service or any other security agencies. So where do we lay this blame squarely now?
We didn't fail.
Okay.
You know, the market is structured that it's big. So we did our part to get in some security men and other stuff.
Did you inform the Ghana Police Service? I guess that would be the primary question that will be facing you then. Why?
We didn't do that. No, we tried to put in place measures before we can inform the security.
And then this happened today. And that's why I want to bring up this sensitive issue. It may be uncomfortable to you as market persons or persons applying your trade there at Kantamanto, but the argument has been that looking at the recurrent nature of this outbreaks, it appears that you, the market people, are to blame partly for this. We don't have any evidence for now, but the feeling is it's got to be from within, and that your own people may have an idea of what's happening.
Yeah, you can blame us. You know, some of them got information, but as to who is responsible, we don't know. And as the national security says, see something, say something. So if you're going to employ the same see something, say something, I think we are going to get the best result and then solve this situation out.
When this happened, I'm sure that as leaders of the market, you've done your meetings already. What have you resolved to do? Because, for instance, the National Fire Service is pointing out that we have some of the buildings even on the fire hydrant. So fighting the fire in the first place was a challenge. What have you resolved to do differently as leaders in the market?
No, it's unfortunate that some of the things we won't know what is going on in the market. So if somebody builds a structure on fire hydrant, then the national service must be taken responsible, you know, because we don't know where the fire hydrant is, but maybe it's a small portion. So how do we know? It is covered. So the person building on it knows that there's a fire hydrant here, but he decided to build on it. So the person in charge of that building should be taking responsibility for the burnt.
And the market itself, that's a very busy place. We all know it for what it is. But would you feel that looking at this incident now, this will be the time for us to have, say, a decongestion exercise within the market, just to free up some space and allow for the experts to properly plan the area? What will be your recommendation on that?
You know, for our research, we've known that anytime the market burns is on Tuesdays. So it's unfortunate that Tuesdays, many people don't go to market. And it burns on Tuesday. So it's not about... That
has been the trend ever since.
Exactly.
So almost every Tuesday, that's when it will happen.
Exactly.
Right.
So because of that trend, we have noticed that something is involved or somebody is involved. Mm. Because when there is nobody in the market is quiet, and that is where they do what they want to do.
Yeah, but my question is also about space in the market. I'm asking that question because normally we lay this blame squarely on the electrical faults, how we've not done the connections properly. So when that happens, you find that even in the reports that probably there's no space. We need to, decongest the area. I'm asking whether, as the Used Clothes Dealers Association, you'd also back that call for us to depopulate the area so that we can have proper planning there.
Yeah, the market needs to be expanded because more people are coming to the market. And when you look at the Ghana Used Clothing Dealers Association across the nation, we have about 2 million people trading on this particular goods. And you know that the number is huge. And then the markets needs to be expanded to accommodate more people.
Let's talk about the way forward. The fire service says investigations are underway. I'm sure that the national security is also doing this. The Ghana Police Service will also come through. You indicated to me earlier that it was your fault. You couldn't inform the police ahead of this exercise. So now that the investigations are ongoing, would you provide the details of that information that was given to you prior to the outbreak of the fire?
Sure, but as I said, it's a rumor. And
no, I guess you were treating it as just rumor, right? You could have reported this to the Ghana Police Service. Yeah, and that's why I'm asking if going forward, you're willing to provide the details, the identities of the people who came to you to say, well, we understand there was going to be fire in the area.
Right now, identified, so many people came to report that they have heard that the market is going to burn. And they want to, some of them wanted to remove their goods from the market. And then we advised them that we are taking care of the situation, so nothing is going to happen. So unfortunately, it happened. So going forward, when we see or we hear something like this, at least it should be reported to the police for their investigations. And that is what I can say about it.
Is it the case that you are blaming someone else and not your association directly for what's happening? Because if you had the intel, you didn't call the police service as you're telling us. You should be taking responsibility for what happened.
You see, the market is such that if we don't have internal structures like the internal security where after the market, they will patrol the whole market. You know, some of them, they are electrical faults. So checking all those things are part of the securities we are providing for the market. But it's unfortunately we didn't report to the police.
Okay. So when you have the daily routine, do you have the police service and its men patrol the area, even aside this internal security arrangement that you have?
Sure. You know, we have two parts in the National Clothing Association. Okay. We have those who are retailers, those who are in the Kantamanto, and then we have the importers who bring the goods and offload from them the ports for the retailers to go and cut. Okay. No. So when we are offloading goods, we have police services coming to patrol because it's at dawn, around 3 a.m.
That's when you bring in the items.
We offload
right.
the goods.
Okay.
So we employ police people to come and check around. Patrol.
But beyond that point, you don't have them focusing on the market itself simply because of the purposes of security.
Yeah, we have the railway police backing us. Especially when there's a case, we report to them, we call them to come around and all that. Yeah.
Okay. Now, let's wrap up because I understand that you'd have to be heading into that meeting with the Trades Ministry. This must be a difficult time for you, knowing that the Christmas is just around the corner. We're struggling in terms of our economy. The exchange rate is also biting hard. As a business community, how will this impact you, or how is it even impacting you already?
This is a big blow to the Ghana Used Clothing Dealers Association, looking at how our economy is right now, and then crediting for goods, and then the goods got bent. How are you going to survive? You know, even right now we are trying to survive, and then your goods are bent. So where do you get money to feed your family? So we will also like the government to come in and then help us.
What would you precisely, what would you be on the lookout for from government in terms of helping you at this moment?
At least the government should come in and then, if not all, at least support us something to take care of the situation. In fact, those who got their goods bent, at least when we can support them, buy some few bills so that they can also be resilient and then continue their business.
Would this feature in that meeting that you're about to hold with the Trades Ministry? Are these some of the demands? And if there are more, probably you want to lay them out in terms of the demands that you'll be putting before government if you go into that meeting.
Yeah, so just some few days, when we meet the ministry, as early as possible, because of how the economy is going, people need to survive. And then they have to feed their families as well. So we will urge the ministries to at least support us with something.
With cash?
Not cash per se, but they can also come in to buy goods for those who have gotten their goods bent, so that they can also come out and continue their business.
Well, let me just give you the opportunity, because these are trying moments for your members out there. Just send a message out to them and speak to your members who are listening to us now.
Yeah, I would like to tell my members that they should take heart. We are working hard to, bring them back to the market. So they should exercise a little patience. By the close of the day, you will hear something from the ministry. And then we would like them to also be resilient, even though it's hard, but they should be resilient and then see how best we can do as an association to also help them.
And Edward Atobra is the General Secretary for the Ghana Used Clothing Dealers Association, obviously stating their position there. I will be on the lookout for that meeting with the Trades Minister, obviously. And thanks for staying with us here on The Pulse. We'll be back shortly after debates on the 2023 budget commenced in Parliament with a controversy over the absence of the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, who was not in the lawmaking chamber at the start of the debates on President Akufo-Addo's financial policy today. Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu earlier indicated that Ken Ofori-Atta's absence suggested that government was not willing to get a bipartisan approach to implementing government's financial plan. But Speaker of Parliament Alban Bagbin ruled that the debate proceeds and later would have the Finance Minister join proceedings. He further revealed that he granted permission to the Finance Minister, who was on an official travel to Germany.
Before we conclude the debate, so please, you have raised a very important matter, but it is all for the good of the country that he is not present here. And we have his deputies who are to assist him present in the House. So we can start the debate today. But it is proper that notice be given to him, because you did not only talk about today, you said that has been his attitude. And I think that should be passed on to him. At any time he presents the budget, he should always be present to listen. I witnessed a number of ministers responsible for finance present budgets and stay with the House, listened and took copious notes, and at the end of the day concluded very well. You have to carry the House along, and with the House, the people, to be able to successfully implement a budget. If you don't carry the people along with you, you cannot implement any policy. You need the buy-in of the people, and you need the buy-in of the House. So the issue raised is important and should not be swept under the carpet.
Well, let's get the latest from Parliamentary correspondent Kweku Asante, who joins us via Zoom. And Kweku, we understand that beyond that, the debates are indeed proceeding. Let's start off with the position of the minority on this. Earlier, of course, after the finance minister presented his budget, the minority was of the view that this was going to be a tough time for the nation. Has that position changed?
It hasn't changed, Blessed. And according to the minority spokesperson on finance, Casey Latufo said, will kickstart the debates there for the NDC minority side. The number of taxes, about 23 of them, which have now been introduced in the 2023 budget, are what he described as killer taxes, which will stifle growth, which will lead businesses to collapse. He actually went to the extent of saying marriages will collapse. His verdict was that this budget was completely hopeless and offered no inspiration and hope to Ghanaians that things will turn around. Let's listen.
Government of Ghana is going to do debt restructuring. First, they are going to do a haircut for domestic bondholders in terms of interest.
Honorable, is that in the budget statement?
Mr. Speaker, the source is from the budget statement, page 212.
Very good. If it's in the budget statement.
Mr. Speaker, the minister has informed us that domestic bondholders will get zero interest in the year 2023. In the year 2024, he has informed us that domestic bondholders will get 5% of their interest. And in the year 2025, they will get 10% of their interest. And going forward, they will extend the tenure by 10 years. Mr. Speaker, to my surprise, this is a time that inflation is in excess of 40%. How do you expect a bondholder not to get interest? Mr. Speaker, this is what in economics and finance we call it financial repression. Mr. Speaker, this government is introducing financial repression in our economy. Mr. Speaker, the impact on this is severe. Mr. Speaker, can you imagine when a pensioner is using his lifetime pension has invested in government bonds and he's only surviving on the coupons, interest that he gets, only for the Ministry of Finance to all of a sudden announce to us that in the year 2023 they are not going to pay interest. Mr. Speaker, how do you expect that pensioner to survive? Mr. Speaker, businesses are going to rely on it. Mr. Speaker, businesses are going to rely on it. Mr. Speaker, individuals. So I want to find out who is going to pay for the medical bills for those pensioners. Mr. Speaker, I believe and hope that this will come before Parliament. But if it does come to Parliament, expect.
And Kweku, we know that the Deputy Finance Minister was also in Parliament, assuring that some cost-cutting measures are being taken that will deal with some of the concerns the minority is raising.
Indeed, one of the key issues that the minority raised had to do with the taxes, and they said that government was only pushing the burden on the ordinary Ghanaian, and government itself was not shouldering a part of the burden sharing agreement that government has been so much pushing. It was then that Dr. John Kuma, Deputy Finance Minister, tried to explain that government on its own has been cutting some expenditure, and they are expecting to do so in the long term to ensure that this burden sharing arrangement is not just passed on to Ghanaians, but also that the ordinary Ghanaian feel that government also is doing something to pushing them. So he was big on the idea that government was cutting down on some of the expenditure over the years, and he expects that that will help turn things around.
Quick question, we're grateful that you're giving us the latest from Parliament. It's now time for us to turn our attention to other issues here. The Ashanti Regional Director of the National Service Secretariat has rendered an unqualified apology to the general public and the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association as he gives assurances his confrontation with a nurse at the Mensah Government Hospital will not repeat itself. Alex Opoku-Mensah is reported to have barged into the surgical ward of the hospital where his daughter is currently serving as a house officer and verbally abused and threatened the nurse who is said to have chastised his daughter over a wrong prescription. The situation forced the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association to threaten withdrawal of their services if no action was taken by authorities. But upon reflection, Alex Opoku-Mensah has apologized and he's giving assurances that the incident will not recur. So let's bring you excerpts of what it is that the gentleman at the center of this has been indicating. He says that, I understand the disappointment and appreciate the inconvenience my actions has caused the general public as well as the nursing fraternity and Mensah Hospital. This has never been my style, but for a genuine reason to actually mediate a persistent issue between my daughter, the doctor in question, and a colleague nurse who I as well consider as my daughter, that's when, of course, he decided to take the action. He continues to say that I do apologize for any mishap and assure all that there shall not be a repetition of such. I look forward to maintaining a cordial relationship between any affected person. And that's from the man at the center of this. So what's the reaction of the general group? That's the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association to this. Joining us is David Chum Tinkran Chum. He's the General Secretary for the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association. Thank you, sir, for your time. So finally, the man at the center of this is apologizing. He says, well, this will not repeat itself. Are you revoking that ultimatum that you earlier issued?
Good evening, my brother, and good evening to your viewers. As far as we are concerned, this is not an apology. It's inadequate, hollow, and impenitent. You don't call this an apology. I mean, the lady in question was never apologized to. Okay, the apology for the statement was quite evasive, and as far as we are concerned, we still stand by our position.
No, but he says, and take a look at what he's saying. He says this is a persistent matter, and he was simply trying to mediate the issue. So it appears that you'd have to do some further checks, right?
He has no basis to mediate anything. Okay. If he felt that whatever was happening was not good enough, or what he was supposed to do was not to put the law in his own hands, but to go to the facility and report to the leadership of that facility. He claims to be a leader. Can I just come to his facility and start misbehaving the way he did? We consider his action as very disdainful and disrespectful to the nursing profession. I will not take such apology as anything. He needs to face the full rigors of the law, and we mean it. Mind you, about 2 years ago, we lost a community health nurse in Sogah in Ashanti region. In such a dastardly act, the lady was clapped to death for no apparent reason. Okay? And these are how it starts. So we take his threats very, very seriously. And nobody should joke with this decision that we are embarking on. Look, several nurses and midwives are leaving this country on daily basis. The few of us who want to stay, to sacrifice, to take care of the good people of this country will not allow such miscreants to intimidate them in any way.
Let's talk about the standards then. In your profession, what's the standard practice? Is, for instance, a nurse allowed to challenge, and I'm using that word advisedly, challenge the prescription of a doctor? Is that not standard practice?
Nobody challenges anybody. A doctor cannot challenge a nurse cannot challenge a doctor. We work in harmony, we work with each other. Health is a multidisciplinary expert team. So each work or each personnel complements the other, and nobody is supreme over the other. You see, if a doctor make any prescription and I think that I have a suggestion to make, I'm obliged to do that. Okay, I can, and I've done that a couple of times. Okay, I have practiced for a very long time, and when I was actively practicing at the clinical area as a nurse anesthetist, cases come to theater, or surgeons bring cases to theater, and I make certain recommendations. For instance, if there are cases that require further examination or further investigations in terms of radiological or whatever, and we are able to do that. So we work together. So it's not like a nurse cannot challenge a doctor. Who says so? And I'm saying that there's nothing like challenging anybody. We work in the best interest of patients. So whatever we will do collectively to inure to the benefit of the patient is what we do. And one of the major, if you like, responsibilities of nurses and midwives is become patient surrogates. People don't understand it. When we say that you are a surrogate person, you stand in for the person. So for instance, if I receive a patient on my ward, the parents are not there, the husband is not there, it is incumbent upon nurses and midwives to stand in for them. That is not to say that maybe any other health personnel will harm anybody. One, the first principle.
I'm asking about the standards simply because obviously I'm sure that you've commenced your own investigations. Are you able to establish if by now the nurse indeed followed the approved procedure in terms of challenging or perhaps raising questions with the doctor's prescription? Because you have laid down rules, I'm sure you would expect that your nurse will equally follow the procedure in trying to raise concerns about the prescription that was being given at the time.
The nurse did what was necessary in that material moment. We have no doubt about the information that we have, and we don't want to make it a banter between a nurse and a doctor. As far as we are concerned, it is the attitude of the father that we are calling to question. In fact, then the doctor is a very young doctor, may not perhaps appreciate or comprehend the nuances of working in a multi-surgical team or a multi-healthcare team. I mean, that's the house officer. Okay, of course. I mean,
give some credit to her. She's going to medical school to become a doctor.
No, listen to me. Don't misquote me. What I'm trying to say is that she is a house officer.
Right.
Okay. Perhaps when you come to the medical field, when you finish medical school, you do 2 years housemanship before you are confirmed as a medical officer. You move on and on and on if you're able to specialize. Listen to me. I don't want to make it doctor, nurse, banter.
Right.
I want you to understand that the young lady is not as experienced as a medical officer or a senior medical officer or a consultant, to the extent that she'll be able to appreciate the dynamics of the healthcare continuum. I've been there for 22 years and I know what I'm talking to you about. We talk to doctors, we exchange ideas, and the rest of it. A doctor can come to you and say, Dave, Charlie, what do you think about these things? It doesn't make him a lesser a doctor. Similarly, if I approach a doctor and say, oh, Charlie, this and that and that, I had called my bosses a couple of times. For instance, when I was working as a head of department of anesthesia in Kukude Regional Hospital, I used to call Dr. Hiaku, who is a consultant anesthesiologist at Trust Hospital, somebody I work with, and I admire so much. So, you see, we're working hard. There's no heroism in medicine or nursing practice or medical practice. We do all these things collectively to be able to help the patient. That's why I don't want us to reduce it to doctor, nurse,
but then, well, I'm asking all of these questions because there are conflicting accounts, and I guess it will be also appropriate for your association not to just base solely on the side of the nurse. I'm saying this because, for instance, our checks are also proving otherwise, that it may not necessarily be because the prescription is wrong, but also because the medicine may not have been readily available. So it appears we need some time to unravel
let me tell you something. I have not mentioned any prescription that was wrong.
Okay, right.
It is not even about a wrong prescription. Now, as far as the issue in contention currently is concerned, perhaps certain things have happened previously, but if we are to narrow it down to the issues we have on our hands right now, it's not just even about a prescription error or whatever. I'm told that is a prescription policy in the HAMS or the HIMS, whatever they call it. We used to call it DIMS when I was working. To the extent that perhaps if the doctor prescribed, let's say, 4 drugs or medicines, and it's only even one cannot be, is not there. If one is not there,
right,
it stands to reason that they cannot even supply the remaining 3. What they will tell the person is that you have to eventually buy the rest. That's why the father is covered by health insurance. I don't know the complexity of that thing. I don't know why they have that challenge. Because I think that if, for instance, a doctor has written 4 medications and it's only 3 that are available, you sell the 3. And then you mark the other one for the person to go and buy. But my checks tells me that that was not the case. So actually, it is not even about medication error in this case that we are talking about. It was just because the medication could not be supplied. Okay, and therefore the nurse called the doctor to come and write another medication to enable them assess those medications to be able to sell. Basically, that is it.
Right.
And look, they called this young lady a couple of times and she couldn't pick, or it went through but she didn't pick. But a doctor on duty was approached, and that doctor actually called this young lady and she came. So the nurse was like, oh, so no, we have called you several times, you didn't pick. Is it because, but why is that when your colleague called you came? So the issue was settled. Okay, the issue was settled between the doctor and the nurse there and there. It wasn't even a major issue. But it got escalated by the intervention of the father, the rude intervention of the father. I hope you understand what I'm saying. So it's not like the doctor prescribed wrong medication and the nurse was seeking to challenge or whatever. And what I'm trying to say that we don't challenge anybody.
Right.
We all
it appears you're not forgiving on this matter at all. And I guess that's why you're going to the extent of asking that this said director be dismissed. That's extreme, isn't it?
He ought to be dismissed. And we are serious about that because he is not fit for purpose to occupy that position that he's occupying. And we are very serious about it. Okay? We are very, very serious about it. We have disdainfully treated nurses in this country as though they are not human beings. And those kind of things will not continue. We are not going to accept that as leaders because see, the people are sacrificing so much. If I told you the number of nurses that have left the shores of this country, the few that are sacrificing to stay with this meager salary, you just run around because you are national service, whatever boss, a regional boss. So then if you become the head of national service in Ghana, then all of us, you begin to walk on our heads. What kind of behavior is that? What
will you lose as an association if you just pardon him and ask for a broader consultation to deal with these systemic challenges that you have?
I'm saying that we take it very, very seriously because of what has happened in the past to our nurses. This is not the first. There are several cases on there where nurses have been molested by other patients. Recently, it even happened at Lakema Hospital and the rest of it, where patient relatives came to the hospital and molested nurses and insulted them as if they don't matter. We will not allow such a thing. We will not countenance those kind of things. You understand what I'm saying? They are professionals in their own right. If you're a national service boss, who are you?
So the ultimatum stands. Is that correct?
Oh yes, as far as we are concerned.
What will it take to reverse? What will it take to reverse that?
When the man is removed from office, he doesn't deserve to be there. He's not fit for purpose. That's what we are asking.
And Mr. Tinkeran, there's a lot of development on this. I just want to bring to your notice now that the NSS itself has issued a statement on your demand. Probably we might want to just get to that at once. It's a brief one. Indicating that the attention of the management of the National Service Scheme has been drawn to the unfortunate happenings at the Mensah Hospital involving Mr. Alex Opoku-Mensah, the Ashanti Regional Director of the scheme, and a member of the staff of the hospital. Now, point 2 indicates that the management has, since the development, invited the officer for some initial investigations into the incident. The management of the scheme regrets the unfortunate incident and wishes to, of course, reiterate its commitment and assurance to the public and the nursing fraternity of our dedication to get this matter resolved. The public will be updated accordingly. No talk about his dismissal.
Of course, I mean, they need to investigate it to see the veracity or otherwise of whatever claims have been made. We care less about whatever. Of course, I mean, they want to go through due process. Of course, the first thing that one should do is to give him the opportunity to explain himself, as has been stated rightly in the letter, and we don't see anything wrong with it. But of course, if they dare keep the man there, they'll you see, I'm saying that we are very serious about this matter.
Yeah, but they say they are working on it. They are working on it. What's your expectation then?
I think that these are procedural nuances that ought to be followed, and we don't have any problem with it. We believe that the leadership will do the needful and assuage to our demands, because that man should not occupy that position, having threatened nurses, having disdainfully insulted nurses and run them down in this manner. I mean, the nurse is not even safe in the hospital. You understand? Now, as I speak with you, we have removed the nurse from the hospital as quickly as possible.
You
have given
why have you
support.
Taken her?
There are several nurses who have specialized as clinical psychologists. They called me this morning, and as I speak with you, we have removed the said nurse, and with permission of the leadership of the hospital, and we are giving psychological support to the nurse.
Why did you take that decision?
Holistically,
yeah. I'm interested in knowing about that story. Why did you take her out of the facility? At least beyond the threats from this gentleman, we've not seen any other action threatening her life.
Oh, you can't sit down for her to be clapped to death before we do the needful. Don't forget that I mentioned an incident to you. Okay, so we want to be very proactive, not reactive in this matter. So, as I've said, she is not psychologically and emotionally stable to even provide nursing services, and that's why we have removed her from the hospital. And we have a clinical psychologist who is taking her through other lessons and stuff like that. We believe that she'll come back to herself very soon, because she can even commit suicide on this matter. I mean, you see, we shouldn't take down these things lying low. Right, we have worked in the health sector for a very long time, and we appreciate the challenges of these issues, and we are doing what is needed to protect our people.
Finally, let me give you the scenario. Probably we could end our conversation on that point. If you don't necessarily have the director for the Ashanti region, NSS, dismissed, and you have a situation where after the procedural processes are exhausted by leadership of NSS, they deem it fit to say repost the director or reassign him to other portfolios. Will that end the matter?
Well, we will take such decision when we get there, because you see, this is not the Vincent Crime's decision. This is the decision of the National Executive Committee and the entire the midwives in this country. So if such a thing happens, why not? We are human beings, okay? We will make sure that, but so long as the man is removed from office, in order not to use that position to intimidate nurses and midwives, who we can be comfortable with such a situation. Anyway. But of course, when you get there, we'll be able to make such appropriate decision.
We'll see about that, but we're grateful, David Tinkranchum. He's the General Secretary for the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association, joining us here on The Pulse. Ghana is expecting to produce its first COVID-19 vaccine by 2024, with the launch of the DEC Vaccines Limited Feasibility Report into the $122 million manufacturing plant to be established in Ghana. Now, this will bring into reality Ghana's goal of turning COVID-19 pandemic into an opportunity to manufacture its own vaccines. There's more in the following report.
Ghana recorded 171,000 cases of COVID-19 with 1,461 deaths as of November 28, 2022. During the peak of the pandemic, Africa was left at the mercy of the West. But that will soon be over, says Dr. Nsia Asare, Presidential Advisor on Health to Ghana's president.
And one of them was to be able to set up a domestic vaccine production in country to achieve self-sufficiency in vaccine production to meet national and regional needs.
But how is Ghana doing this? Dr. Nsia Asare says government is relying on the private sector to execute this agenda.
Strategies that were supposed to be used was to establish a local vaccine manufacturing plant or plants in the country. In Ghana, we are not going to, it's not the government who is going to set up these factories. We are going to work through the private sector, because we know that we have a very strong, robust private sector who has already footprints in the West Africa sub-region.
With that, a Ghanaian company, DEC Vaccines Limited, has come to the rescue. The company is expected to produce its first vaccine in 2024. Dr. Nsia Opokun is the managing director of the company.
Q4 2024, you see the first vaccine from DEK, provided the money is released in January for us to start the construction.
What kind of vaccine should we look forward to seeing?
Oh, we are going to have 13 vaccines in 3 years. The first vaccine, 2 vaccines, will be the COVID vaccine and malaria vaccine.
According to him, a feasibility studies on the company's project has been completed and has been declared as bankable.
For a project like this, it needs high financing. You heard that we need 122 million as a first phase, and in total we need about 200 million. So for investors to put in their money, we needed to do the bankable feasibility to see whether the project is feasible or not. At the end of the day, it took some time, but it has come out that this project is feasible, and therefore IFC is taking or moving forward to arrange the finance for us to start the project, which is a very good news.
He reviewed the DEK vaccines facility will be a facility for the whole of Africa, especially in times of any future pandemic.
Once we start production, it will actually bring Ghana to the world map. As you know, Africa can only supply 1%. If we come in, our facility can give more than 300 million doses. What it means is that our facility alone can cover more than 30% of the needs of Africa. Therefore, if there's any future pandemic, Ghana, ECOWAS, and Africa will be ready. So this facility is going to be a health security for Africa, not only Ghana.
And even before they start, Dr. Nsia Asare says a company is now willing to buy vaccines produced in Ghana.
I'm also very happy to say that already Gavi, which is the main purchaser with UNICEF of vaccines, I'm sure they heard the cry of Ghana and Africa for that matter, and they are trying to do their market shaping so that, as Dr. Kofi Nsia said, if you manufacture vaccines on the African continent, it will also be procured by Gavi according to a system so that they don't run out of money.
So if everything should go as planned, we will have more vaccines produced in Ghana for Africa from 2024.
Then we'll go to meningococci, pneumococci, pentavalent, HPV, IPV, and polio, rotavirus, and OCV. So there are many others.
For JoyNews, I am Samuel Kojo Brace, Accra.
Speed ramps have been designed to check top speed on our roads, especially at critical intersections on urban roads. However, there is a growing trend where residents in various communities put up ramps without recourse to city authorities. Motorists say the phenomenon is posing a serious threat to road safety. My colleague Ernest Menu traveled around the country and reports drivers want the Highways Authority and the urban roads to check the situation. There's more in the following report.
It was a pleasant ride through the countryside until the constant slams into potholes stole my joy and eventually turned this journey into a nightmare. Many of the roads in Bole Bamboy are riddled with potholes. Even if you're wearing a seatbelt, the road forces you to dance. Attempts by some locals to control excessive speed by some drivers piqued my interest. Residents had built sand mounds to act as speed ramps. According to Isaac Bamunye, who spoke on behalf of the residents, too many people have died here.
We are putting up this speed ramp because anytime we have been observing accident here. That is why we are putting up. Just 3 weeks ago, one of our father lost his life through this road accident. That's why we are putting up the speed ramp. So we are calling for the government to come and support us. Okay. If not, it's our community, things are going bad.
There were 4 of such mounds on the same stretch. However, the downpour had washed away their efforts. But residents say they have a plan.
So our plan is that we are just contributing some small coins so that we can buy cement and other things, so that we can put up, we can get some cement and then we also make it in the proper way.
When asked how oncoming vehicles could be warned to take precaution, here's what Isaac said.
So the first thing we are doing, we just cut some leaves and then we put on the road so that any vehicle come in will know that there's something happening here, so that they reduce the speed and then that's the for now.
The situation here appears to be symptomatic of a bigger road safety concern, the conundrum of ramps. Whereas this is designed to control speed and save lives, motorists are concerned about how this tool is being deployed and its adverse effect on night driving. Further down in the central region town of Asin Dadieso, a driver, Kofi Usu, who plies the Asin Cape Coast Road, approached the team when he figured out what the story was about. He's livid about what he describes as poor construction of speed ramps on that stretch.
My problem is that there are no road signs to warn us. Some of them just spring up, and roads are not constructed per the standards of the Highways Authority. It is destroying our cars.
Highway for Nankasa, yeah, Omunim said, Mussibi, a Yanua, Carne for Enconco problem, would ye, and the Carne qua a pimp and Sana, wait me, Casa was seen quite swinging about 20 essay. So what I say, Nemos will be so the Mrakoshan is MKBTC answer because ABC and I say, and the same no more to me is to be yet, the bumping with that year's OMT, bumping any bumping. Carbet made your bumping so, I ain't going to be see it.
He noted the nature of the ramps does not only affect their vehicles, but also their health.
We have developed waist pains as a result. This is bad.
A passenger in his car added her voice.
There's one ahead of us. Many trucks fall off on that stretch. Imagine the harm that will come to those nearby.
The problem here is that the road sign, is just where the ramp is. How exactly is any motorist expected to take precaution when you have the signpost, which is, by the way, falling off just where you have the road ramp?
But again, the residents here at Asin Dadieso say the speed on the road is snuffing out lives, including children.
Instead of them, so lean, road near lean. So as road near lean, the car can see a banner, one man kind of over money. Even post and yes, speed on my mother to sway.
The speed ramp is disturbing us a lot, especially if you don't know the road. If you have not been passing on this road, it can lead you to cause an accident, because sometimes you approach the ramp before you get to know there is a ramp. So if they can maybe fix a signboard, I think it will help us.
The residents say that's because of the speeding. That's why some of them created themselves. You see, some put sand, they mold the sand on the road. How do you drivers respond to that?
I think they are right, because I think some years back, people have been dying through this speeding and others. So I think some of them, they write to the authority, but the authority were not responding to that. And children were dying out of those speeding and others. So I think out of their own power and others, they try to maneuver and constructed this ramp on the road.
Later, at Anumabo, we found this truck that has fallen on its side. An eyewitness to the accident tells JoyNews the truck lost balance whilst climbing the ramp. This, he added, is a common phenomenon.
The ramp is too high, especially on one side, so the truck tried to cross over on the lower side. That is what happened. This happens very often. 5 cases alone in the past few months.
Now, I don't test you. Five. Busumi Kutan. Oh. Wait. Because of ramp. Now ramp no one or yeah, now crewman for no.
Aside from the nature of the ramps and the random construction, motorists say the absence of road signs worsened the situation. Walter is a driver here.
We are pleading that they should bring a signboard that will notify those who have not been using this road. Yeah, because sometimes when you are driving at night, you will see like those who are not used to this road. Sometimes they.
And thanks for staying with us here on The Pulse. That's all we have for you on the show today. We're taking a break. Next, it's Let's Talk Showbiz. I'm Blessed Sogah. To log on to myjoyonline.com for updates.